Hi, how are you? I'm so happy to see you.
I am so happy to be back in New York.
We have been talking about doing this since time began, it feels like. And it's kind of a trip when you're waiting patiently for a novel that also has gone through a couple of iterations. This was not the book you had originally planned.
Well, I was thinking it may have been nerve-wracking for you, but for me, this is not the novel at all that I set out to write. You know, I think of myself as a very contemporary novelist, and I wanted to write a novel about, gentrification, changing neighborhoods in the South, and asking yourself the question of, can you gentrify your own community? And so I had a good idea. I live in a neighborhood where this is relevant. I had so many really good ideas, but it was like the novel was not noveling.
Right.
It just wasn't doing that magical thing. And I tried to make it work, and it wasn't working. And I really got very disheartened. Mm-hmm. And I finally just started just scribbling with a pencil and a composition book, not even a pen, a pencil that I had to sharpen with a pencil sharpener.
Hey, gentle. Some of us love a pencil.
Oh, well, then me too now.
Listen, I like a Blackwing, okay? I like a really sharp pencil.
This is just like a number 2 pencil I picked up somewhere. And I met these characters, and I saw that they were living in the 1950s.
Right.
I don't do that. That's not. I understand myself to contain multitudes, but I do not contain historical fiction.
Right.
Until I did.
Right. So Niecy and Annie. I'm fond of most of your characters. You know this. I love these women. You make them go through some stuff, my friend.
It's a book.
I know. I got very invested very quickly.
Well, they've known each other since they were infants. They're motherless, but one of them, her mother, Niecy's mother, is dead, and so she knows she will not see her mother again. And Annie's mother has run off. They say Annie's mother is gone, God knows where. And so she's kind of organized her life around searching for her mother, because she has this hope that one day her mother's going to walk in the front door.
Right.
So she wakes up every day hopeful. She goes to bed every night disappointed.
I want to sit with this motherless bit for a second, because it's a really profound wound for both of them to have, but it's not an equivalent wound. And it really does... It sort of plunges us into a place where we don't know quite where these girls are going, right?
I mean, the search for her mother is something of an adventure, but also I think in your heart you kind of feel like it's a fool's errand, because if your mother knows, as all her friends say, you don't know where she is, but she knows exactly where you are. So she hasn't come to look for you for a reason.
Right.
So it is as much to find out the reason. The hunt is to find the reason as much as it is to discover the mother.
So Honeysuckle, Louisiana, population 12? 15?
That is the most New York thing.
Well, listen. Why does this surprise you in any way, shape, or form?
Well, my dad is from a small town, Louisiana, and I'm really interested in the people who migrated from small towns in the South to larger places in the South, because people always think of Southerners as migrating north. They think of the South as someplace from which people want to escape. Right. But a lot of people migrated to the big cities, to Atlanta, to Memphis, to Birmingham, to Montgomery. And so I really wanted to, I'm drawn to that story. I think a lot of everything about this story comes from my interest in understanding my parents better.
Right.
I moved back home because I wanted to know my parents as adults. Because when I would come home for a vacation or whatever, I'm sleeping in that childhood room. We don't get to see each other. And I wanted it to be like how Aunt Irene says to Niecy, I'm going to pour a drink and we're going to talk to each other like grown women.
Right.
That is my fantasy. That is not my mama's fantasy.
Right. Okay, Atlanta. You'd been up here for how many years before you moved home?
I was in New York about 10 years, but I had been gone about 20. I had lived in Iowa, Illinois, D.C., Vegas.
Wait, I don't think I knew about Vegas.
Cambridge. I went anywhere the writing opportunities took me.
Got it. Okay. But I want to talk about the landscape of Atlanta and what that means for you in terms of home. I mean, you talked earlier about how the original book that you were going to write was about gentrification in this modern Atlanta. Atlanta strikes me as a place that has a great character, that is sort of constantly changing, but I think we don't think of it as quickly as a major city the way we do, say, Chicago or New York. It's bigger than Boston.
I don't know. What do you mean, we?
Okay. But Atlanta.
Yes. I mean, Atlanta is the African American Mecca.
Mm-hmm.
And it is because people think about, the black middle class in Atlanta, but what I think that is not necessarily factored in is the role of the historically black colleges in creating that, because Atlanta has 6 historically black colleges.
Right.
So just imagine in the 40s and 50s, all these people coming from these small towns. I know a 97-year-old woman who came to Spelman with every cent her whole community could come up with to support her was contained in a stocking.
Mm-hmm.
She took that stocking to the president of Spelman, Mrs. Reed, poured the money out the stocking, returned the stocking to her because she knew she could not spare it.
Right.
And now she has a PhD in Shakespeare. So I think history, our historical understanding of these colleges is like these colleges served the black middle class, but more accurately is that they created the black middle class.
Right. So, question from the audience: as an alumna of Spelman College,
that would be me.
Are any of your female characters ever influenced by Spelman women you knew/went to school with?
I'm going to say the 97-year-old alumna really told me so many things. Like, she told me that when she was there were a pair of sisters where one would work full-time as a live-in maid for a year, come back to go to school for a year, and her sister would then go work for the same family for a year until they both finished college. And that just really struck me as like a lost history. So capturing her story, I even dedicated the book to her because I felt like I want to capture that. But also the Spelman women, I was at Spelman during the curfew era. Yes, we had a curfew, and you had to try to get in there before curfew. Now, when I was there, the consequences of missing curfew were merely annoying. But in the 50s, the consequences of missing curfew would be expulsion. So the stakes were higher.
Right.
But I did kind of capture that sense of watching the clock. Got to get back. Got to get back.
Yeah, I'm going to quote you for a second too. There's a line you have about well-dressed women being cured in the kiln of respectability that comes with being a Spelman woman. I mean, respectability is a big piece of this. When you are moving from class to class, right? I mean, you're writing a novel about friendship, absolutely. You are writing a novel about what it means to be a woman in America, but you are also writing about class and money and privilege.
And I think that when you talk about class and money and privilege, but when you look at it through an African American lens, the landscape is a bit different.
Right.
In that how meaningful it was for someone to say, this is my own home.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we know how to be, in this house, we know how to behave. I think in writing about respectability, the impulse, like even when you use the term respectability, I had to work at finding also that there is an honor there in that respectability, because people work so hard to have those lives. And I didn't want to write a novel where I mock them. Like, I didn't want to mock Mrs. McHenry for being in the organizations that require that she wear uninterrupted white. I know y'all know what I'm talking about.
Even I know what you're talking about.
Well, you in charge of the whole bookstore. You know all kinds of things.
I mean, here's the thing. I'm curious, right? Like, when you're curious, there's an entire universe in front of you, and I want to know other people's stories. I mean, it is why I read a lot.
Yeah, and that's what reading is. But a lot of people, they mock the traditions, right? They mock the traditions. And even the character Joette, she doesn't want to wear the pantyhose. And, I get that.
I didn't want to wear the pantyhose. I actually did not take a job because I was going to have to wear pantyhose.
Yeah, I'm serious. I was recently involved in something, and they were like, you have to wear pantyhose. And I said, really? How, without the aid of a time machine, am I supposed to get those?
But I have to say, I do love Mrs. McHenry because she is absolutely a woman of her time and of her circumstances. But she has a great love for her family. She has a great love for Niecy. She has some things she wants to plug in, sure, but you've got to give her credit for still wanting to build a world in a loving home.
She has a love for her family. She has a love for her uninterrupted white. She has a love for her sons. But she also is a race woman. I mean, I think that's also part of the tension between this fact that she's from the old school, how they used to say lifting as we climb? Mm-hmm. She's lifting as she climbs, but she also doesn't want certain people in her home. And, so the very same people that she's lifting as she climbs, they will not be coming to dinner, and they will not risk everything she's built. And there is that tension because Niecy and Annie are such good friends. Niecy has married into this, respectable family, and she wants to bring Annie along. Mm-hmm. And her mother-in-law is like, yeah, no, we don't know. There is no +1 on this prosperity.
But also Annie makes her own family. I mean, she's got Baby Doll and Bobo and sort of Clyde. Clyde's kind of off to the side, but she does make her own family.
She makes her own family. It's fun writing. This book, I think, is the most Southern thing I've ever written in that all the characters are just like real characters. Mm-hmm. Like everybody is a little bit quirky. I kind of resisted that type of writing before because I felt there's an expectation of Southern writers to write everybody be a little zany. Mm-hmm. But with this one, I kind of let my freak flag fly with this novel. So we've got a sharecropping whorehouse. We have, the housewife who is a little too partial to her limoncello. I just the blues man with the extensive vocabulary. Like, I just let the people be kind of amusing to me and quirky, yet I tried to make it where they still felt familiar, like they felt real to you, but also that you would like to meet them, or at least hear about them.
But you built a world.
I guess so.
Yeah, it's an entire. It was interesting to me that when I realized that this was not set in the present day, and I was kind of like, okay, let's see where this goes.
Same.
I got it a little later than you did. And I had a moment of, okay. And, when you get one of Tayari's novels, you sit down and it's like suddenly an hour is gone and you're like, what just happened? Or at least that's what happens for me. And the second time I went back to read it to prep for the show, I mean, it's a different reading experience. You have to slow down. You have to pay attention to all of the bits and the sort of the spine of the thing. I didn't want to leave. I did not want to. I was mad when I had to put Memphis behind me. I was mad when I had to put Atlanta. I did not want to leave the McHenry's house. I just felt like you had constructed a world that, I just didn't want to leave.
I appreciate that. And I felt that in writing it because when I wrote this, during 2020, I really couldn't write at all. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because I was doubting the purpose of literature, and that in 2020 we had COVID, 1 million Americans died, we had so much police violence. I didn't see what the role of fiction was there. Right. I feel like when I was a young writer, when you're hyping up young people to write, you tell them your story can change the world, that this book may not change the world, but it could change the person who's going to change the world. Mm-hmm. And that's how you hype them up. But after a while, you have to kind of get honest with yourself and realize that the impact of your work will be perhaps more modest than you dreamed. Mm-hmm. And you have to do it anyway. But I was just having a crisis of purpose. And then in like 2023 or 2022, I got sick. I wasn't well. And I wrote the characters they gave me a place to go when I was having such a hard time. I could disappear into their world, and I would write to figure out what was going to happen to them. And I just allowed myself to let my writing be meaningful to me and not try to think about what it could do to heal the world, and maybe just kind of heal myself.
It changed your voice on the page too, didn't it?
I think so. It was just a whole different project.
Right. I mean, we've got the epistolary piece that we've seen before, certainly in An American Marriage. You like duologies, right? Like, so how many of you have read Silver Sparrow? Okay, thank you. Oh, my people. I'm just thinking of the sisters, too, in Silver Sparrow. I mean, you are always looking for the play.
Well, you know what? It's so funny. I told myself, I'm not going to write multiple points of view. I'm going to write just one point of view. And I was writing Niecy, but then when Annie jumped out the window and ran away, I wanted to know where she had gone. Niecy didn't know. She couldn't tell me. So I had to go to the other person who knew, which was Annie. I felt myself saying, Annie,
right.
Where are you? And she was like, well, actually, I've had car trouble and I'm in Mississippi at a sharecropping whorehouse.
Yeah, that Packard was problematic.
Yeah, so who's there with you? She's like, girl, baby dog, Clyde, Bobo.
But she mixes not a martini. Wait, what was her signature drink that she learned to mix?
Oh, she made the slow gin fizz.
Thank you. Sorry. How old is she when she's making? Anyway, but voice, right? So we've got the structure. We're alternating POV between these two women who cradle friends, both motherless, and yet, I mean, those are two pretty divergent paths.
Their paths diverge, but this is my theory about this, about keeping friendships and relationships together. People who like themselves, who love themselves, they want to be around the people who've known them their whole life. They want to be around the people who are witnesses to their lives. It's people who reject themselves, don't want to be reminded of their past. But for Niecy and Annie, I feel like each one of them is like the keeper of the archive of the other one's heart. And they want to keep that close, even though there's a distance between them. Friendships are different than other kinds of relationships, different than biological family even, because with your friends, you have to continually decide to re-up on that relationship. You're constantly like renewing your vows with your friends.
Yeah.
There's so much agency, and they choose each other again and again.
There was something you said. There's a new edition of Leaving Atlanta, and in the introduction you said, I try to approach my work with an A side and a B side. It's like listening to vinyl, right? And you always sort of start with the character, like the front piece of the story is always the character, and then the second piece is whatever larger societal ill or issue you're trying to sort of poke holes in until you understand it better. I mean, did you get, beyond the sense of comfort that you get from telling this story and meeting these women and hanging out in this world, did you do the thing you set out to do with this book in terms of that A and B setup?
Because I didn't plan to write this book, my process was a little different. I'm not a controlling writer. I know that I write, and I don't necessarily know. I never know what the end is going to be, but I like to think I know what the story is about.
Right.
I don't think that's much to ask. Don't you think that's reasonable?
Totally reasonable.
Yeah, totally reasonable. But I do, so it was like certain questions, societal questions, became clear to me that I hadn't thought about. Like being set in the 50s,
right.
I had not realized how central safe, effective contraception is to the way that we live as a society.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I was born in 1970. So, I came of age where the pill was in wide usage, et cetera. So I didn't know this terror people had of, unplanned, like we say Planned Parenthood, and we just think of an organization. We don't stop to think about what that means to plan or be unable to plan parenthood. But in the 50s, people were just kind of out here rolling the dice. And there were and kids were popping up everywhere. And the kids, all these kids popping up everywhere would not only affect the people whose children they were, but other people may be forced to raise a child you hadn't planned on raising because there's a child in your family, and what are you going to do? So like no one could plan their lives. And so this book, I think in some ways ended up also being about that, even if I had not planned it planned for it to be about that. But I hope that readers will realize how different things are now than then, and also realize how urgent our situation is on these matters today.
But we also learn that marriage isn't the be-all, end-all, and the savior of all things.
But we already knew that, right?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure everyone.
Look, now more people
I'm
clapping.
not sure everyone knew that.
Well, I think it's kind of like, you know how Annie wants to find her mother, and all of her friends who have mothers are like, we understand why you really want to find your mother, but as people who have mothers, we just want you to know it's a little more to it than you think.
Yeah. But also cornering that woman with the orange lipstick in the bar in Memphis.
If Annie wants to find her mother, here's the thing: if she doesn't know who her mother is, she don't know who her mother isn't.
Right.
So she sees all these people who could potentially be her mother. She starts asking little questions like, so, where were you in 1945? Just wondering. Yeah.
And you watch people scoot down the bar so they can get away from this girl. That's really, it's heartbreaking, though.
You know, it is heartbreaking. Her desire for her mother is more, to me, heartbreaking than the actual absence of a mother.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Niecy doesn't have a mother either, and it doesn't affect her in the same way. People ask me, is this book about biological family versus found family? Like, what is the significance of biology? But I think the significance is whatever you think it is. Annie thinks biology, that her biological mother is what she's been missing in her life. Whether she's right or wrong, the fact that she thinks it is it's like the engine for her choices.
There were a couple of points where I got a little mad at you because I was like, can she just sit down? Yes, because you're in control of the story, my friend. No. Oh, wait. Are we going to? Oh, I see where this is going. Annie, I wanted the world for her. The world did not want the world for Annie. Yes, I get really involved in these things, okay? I realize I'm talking about a fictional character as if she's a real person. It happens. But I wanted Annie to cut a break, and you gave her a break with Bobo. You gave her a break with Baby Doll. Her friendship with Baby Doll grounds her in a way that her search for her mother never would.
But she doesn't know it.
I know. This is the part where my heart breaks.
Like she doesn't know it, but she does have a really good time with these people.
Yeah, she does.
I feel like I want to make sure that this book is kind of funny. Don't you think this book is funny?
Is, yes.
It's funny. It's funny.
Okay, she's right about the funny, but we can't ignore the, feeling lots of things.
I know. I do sometimes feel though that when, like, I'll give you an example. When I was doing a talk about this book, and the person that I was talking to, unlike you, had not read it very closely. I think she gave the back of the book a drive-by read, and she was like, black, 1950s, Jim Crow. Like, she just knew that this was a book about racial trauma and racial violence. And the question she was asking me, I was like, did she read this book? And I just kind of roll with it, but I think it's because the trauma assumption is so strong. Right. So that's why I always like to say, but this book, it is somewhat funny.
It's more than somewhat funny, and not just because of the whorehouse. Not just because of the whorehouse.
But it is funny.
Before I ignore Franklin, who's not. I want to give Franklin his moment because there's also an audience question. Niecy and Franklin's relationship, speaking of marriage, is one of deep care and safety for both characters. How do you think about the character of Franklin, and what was your thought process for choosing that story for Niecy and developing that relationship?
So Franklin he's a grown man. He's a lawyer. He's lifting as he climbs, and he is unmarried because he's a polio survivor, so has a limp, and his mother has decided, it's time for me to go find this man a wife. She goes to Spelman College and plucks Nisi out of the line going into the chapel. There is Nisi wearing what? Uninterrupted white. And so there it's kind of like an arranged marriage in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think it works for them in a way. Here's the thing. Okay. No, like you said, marriage isn't the end all be all.
Right. But they're a delight to read.
Yeah.
They are a lovely couple.
And it's a little hot sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're making it happen, right?
Listen, if you're going to be married, don't be bored.
Oh, that's good. Yes.
Yes. See?
Yes. And so I enjoyed writing him, and also the complexities, because she gets a husband. She also gets a mother.
Yeah.
She said, this is not a bad deal.
Right.
And this whole idea of like in the 50s and the questions about sexuality and, like be good, but not too good, because people want to know, where you learn those tricks, but then you don't want to be boring, like all of that, like her trying to figure out how to negotiate the bedroom in a time when people were not being frank about such conversations.
Right. And also very, very judgy. I mean, there is a morality that gets ascribed. I mean, there is a point where Franklin says, hey,
you're good at this.
Was there perhaps a little practice? And you can feel sort of the raised eyebrow, and you're like, well, dude. I mean, it's one thing.
I know. What does he say? Unless you're some kind of savant. Yeah.
So very fun. I mean, seriously, a funny moment, but at the same time, you're thinking, hey, wait a minute. If he actually figures this out, I mean, the stakes are high.
The stakes are high, but also I found that the people were more open than I would have thought. People can sometimes be more tolerant behind closed doors than they would be out in the world also.
Yeah.
Like, it's like when we say behind closed doors, we always think something bad is happening back there. But sometimes things can be kinder behind the doors.
So which of the characters do you connect with, and do you find that character represents any specific moment in your life?
Well, of course, because Nisi is a Spelmanite, I have special affection. I have a special affection for her. She is undaunted, but but I think I identify with Annie in her desire to figure out a different way to live. The thing about our girls not having mothers means they don't have they don't have role models. They don't have a roadmap. So they're, in many ways, they're living unprecedented lives.
Right.
And I do identify with that, because I think that so many of us, as things change in the world, we're living unprecedented lives. Our lives are so different than our mothers. Our mothers cannot give us certain kinds of advice because we're living in a different world, and we're making the rules for ourselves, with a little help from our friends.
But also the 50s weren't that long ago.
That was something that struck me when I was writing it, that the characters are, living in the 50s, and how often the elders in their lives make casual references to slavery. Like, it made it, and then when I was trying to get my timeline right, I rolled a piece of butcher paper on my kitchen island, and I was writing what happened in what years. And when I was doing that, I realized just how recent segregation was. Even there's something that didn't make it into the book, but when Nisi and Franklin are going to move into their new house, they're actually not going to be able to, because in Atlanta, my beloved Atlanta, a barrier was built to keep moving vans from being able to move into the neighborhood, because they didn't want any black people to move into that area. And that is just like 3 years before I was born.
So a physical barrier,
yes.
red line.
It was known as Atlanta's Berlin Wall. And that was just right before I was born. And
1967,
yeah, that was very sobering for me when I was looking at how close this history was, on my breakfast bar.
But do you as a writer have an obligation? I mean, let's sit with the line between nostalgia and memory for a second, right? Do you have an obligation as a writer, especially when it comes to historical fiction? Do you have an obligation to the history itself, or is the obligation to the characters in the story?
I don't know if there's a distinction there.
Okay, that's fair.
I do feel like I have an obligation to kind of disrupt some problematic ideas, but I think the truth is the ultimate disruptor.
Yeah.
So if I'm true to the characters, I will be true to the historical period. If I'm true to the characters, I'll be true to, to my values about justice.
Right. I mean, I have to say, whenever I read a narrative about women pre-2003, I get a little itchy. No, I really get a little itchy reading history, because it's very clear to me that I would not want to be in this body in certain moments in time with this face. I mean, there's some stuff where I'm like, you know what? I don't know how I would have handled that. You can stand in front of a monument, you can stand in a monument and look around, and it's...
But don't you think, though, when you think about these times but think of the people you would have gotten to know. Like, that's another thing. Like, you may not have wanted to be, in this body with this face, but you also could have been in that community also.
Yeah.
And I think in the fiction, that's kind of the trade-off, where you simultaneously explore all the challenges, but you also just have to remember all the things that allowed your grandmother to get up in the morning.
Right.
And to give those things the power that they deserve.
So it brings us back to community. I mean, reading is an act of community. Writing is an act of community.
It can be, yes.
Ideally?
Ideally. I mean, reading, yes. I would say writing is a solitary act. But I do think that the best writers understand themselves to be part of a community. Sometimes I read some books by people who, for whatever reason, the world has given them the luxury of not knowing they have a community.
Right.
But and the work leaves me cold.
I mean, you introduced me to Randall Keenan's work. I had been reading Pearl Cleage actually before you and I met. I think of you in concert with other writers.
I mean, I think of myself in conversation with Pearl Cleage, both, on the page and in life. She was my teacher at Spelman. But I do think about, even in Kin, when we have the girls, one mother is dead, one mother dances too much. I like to think of that as being in conversation with Morrison. And I don't know if in conversation, definitely I feel every book I write, I like to give a deep curtsy, like a forehead to the ground curtsy to Toni Morrison.
Sula, I just reread Sula not long ago, and it's still...
And you think about Song of Solomon, that book has so much plot. I think a lot of times that when you're like a very serious writer, people discourage you from plot. They think like the most serious book has no plot. The people don't do anything. They just sit around and think. But if you look at Morrison, the people do so many wild things.
Yes.
And I love the way that she gives us all permission to say that this story can be rigorous and juicy simultaneously.
Yeah. Tar Baby.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Wait, how many of you have read Tar Baby? Okay. And so much weird, surprising stuff in Tar Baby too. I did a recent kind of big reread, and it was to come back to a writer when you've got a little more time in your own it's like you read Morrison at 20 and then you read Morrison not at 20. It's kind of a trip. Can we talk about other writers? You and I share a love of Nina McConigley.
Yes.
How to Commit a Postcolonial Murder.
I've been talking about that book all
y'all
week.
Need this book. But
and it's so thin. It gets the job done. It's like, like 143 pages?
Something like that.
It's so good.
It's that Claire Keegan trim. It's tiny. But you met Nina at Breadloaf?
Somewhere. It's a small literary world. You can't even trace where you met. I met her on the scene, as they say. Yes.
I was just an excuse to get another book in here that I love. Morrison, obviously a great influence. Randall Keenan.
Let us not forget the poets.
Okay, so let's bring in the poets.
I think Lucille Clifton there's no feeling that anyone has ever had that Lucille Clifton has not expressed.
Who else?
We can get contemporary. I'd like to talk about my colleague Jericho Brown,
who we love.
Yes,
that man is amazing.
We could talk about the people in this room if we wanted to.
Yeah, we could.
I know.
We could.
I mean, we could
band back together, but how much did you change writing this book? Like, have you changed, actually? Has writing this book changed you?
I really think that having to let go of the idea that I control my writing has changed me. Okay. And it's humbling. It's humbling. And it's also given me more, I give grace to other people. I used to didn't believe people. You know, those people who say, oh, the character just came to me, or it was a dream, or I always thought these people were trying to seem interesting. Because it makes you seem interesting, right? Like you have like you have a hotline to the divine, and they just, like, the story just comes through you. I had such contempt for these people, but I now have become more tolerant.
Okay. Listen, I have one job tonight, and that is to be her straight woman. I think you understand this. Can you speak to what defines sisterhood or kinship more broadly in a Black cultural context? For example, what makes our blue heart emoji Spelman sisterhood so meaningful? Why are so many culturally Black spaces organized around familial models?
I was reading somewhere about how much the Black vernacular involves calling people by familial names who are not your actual family. You know, like even just calling people brother and sister, like just as simple as that. And I think that when our families were so fractured during the period of enslavement, for example, that we learned that your family is who you want your family to be. I think that's the ultimate act of resistance, is to be able to include people in your family system. And that, I think, is the basis of why we're still here, why we're still alive. And when it comes to our Spelman sisterhood, like it was not my idea to attend Spelman College. I wanted to go to Dillard University. I had even saved my money. I had a physical piggy bank. You know, remember when a bank was something that you could hold? And you had the little thing in the bottom, and you stick your fingers in and pull out the money like one. I was going to Dillard. I sent in my deposit of my own money. But my mother and one of the professors at Spelman, Dr. Gloria Wade Gales, who just passed away, they conspired to send me to Spelman. And I did not want to go because I thought I did not want to go to a girls' school.
Right.
I really believe that, because I did not know the value of sisterhood in that way. But being locked in that dorm after curfew, because young people, they don't sleep. They don't sleep, yet you're locked into this room. You're locked into this building with these people. All y'all are awake. It's 2 a.m. You have no choice but to get to know each other. And that is when I learned just the value of knowing women.
Right. Your mom is also a big part of this book, sort of in the background. Not just because she's hustling tickets.
Yeah, my mother, oh my God, my Atlanta launch, my mother sold a ticket to every octogenarian in Southwest Atlanta. But my mother was a child activist. When she was 15 years old, she participated in a 2-year-long sit-in movement. Those young people sat in at that drugstore every day in the summertime, Monday through Saturday. And during the school year, they would come on the weekend, and they just wore those people down. And just the sight of these young people so well-dressed and so well-mannered, it just wore down on the moral, it just exposed the moral corruptness of segregation. So I do have this moment in the book when Niecy says, who doesn't admire those kids in Oklahoma City? And that's where my mother was. And this was well before Greensboro. So when they did the sit-in, it was a novel idea, and it was effective. They didn't make headlines, but they made change.
Okay, so speaking of change, what's next?
I just finished this book.
I know. Listen.
This book came out day before yesterday.
I know.
Well, I kind of have a fantasy that I could write the book that I thought I was going to write, because it is a good idea. And like I said, me and the book didn't have chemistry.
Right.
But we could have it now.
True.
Because that can happen. Like,
True.
there could be something or someone with whom you did not have chemistry, and then you meet them later, and then...
Yeah.
So I'm hoping me and this book can hit it off.
I would say you have. I just, I'm nosy.
Well,
it happens.
And also, I want to write another book. I will write another book. But when I was writing this book, I wasn't sure if I could write another book. I thought perhaps creativity was finite. Mm-hmm. Perhaps I had used up all that had been given to me. Mm-hmm. And it felt even like kind of rude and greedy to say, I want to do it again. But I kind of want to do it again.
Yeah, I would like you to do it again. I think I'm not the only one. I promise you, we're going to get to the signing part. But what's the word for the year this year?
The word of the year. So instead of a New Year's resolution, I do a word of the year. At one point, I had to use the word worthy, because I realized that after an American marriage, I was saying, oh, maybe I've had more than my share. And if you've had more than your share, it means you didn't deserve it. So I made my word of the year worthy, and I thought that would help me to write. But actually, when the word of the year was worthy, I didn't write anything, because I was like, I am good enough, just like this. I was just on the couch feeling the self-love. I didn't go to the gym either. I was like, I'm good enough. And so then after that, I had to get my life together, and I chose the word discipline.
Right.
And after that, I had onward. And this year, the word is present, because I want to be alert in the moment and not worry about, oh, how does this measure up to something, before, or what's in the future, what's next. I want to be present right now.
That's why you have me.
And then I wanted to think of it as present.
Right.
Because I'm on the road, I'm doing 30 cities, and I want to say, what is it that I want to talk about? What do I want to present? What is my responsibility to present? And then the last thing, now this is a little corny, but I just feel so grateful and blessed to be here. So it's a present.
And that's where we're going to end the show. Thank you, New York. Thank you, Tayari Jones. All right. I'm Miwa Messer. This is Poured Over. Give us a second to set up the book signing. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Poured Over is a Barnes & Noble production. To help other readers find us, please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.